17 lines. Doesn't take more than that. Most things written on anonymous boards from the early 2000s are gone now. Forgotten or simply never found. Some reach past the page. This is one of them. A February Wednesday in 2006. Blockbuster is the undisputed place to be on a Friday night. Twitter won't exist for another month, and Pluto is still a planet. Somewhere in Japan, an unknown user shares his experiences in the countryside with readers of the occult board on Nichaneru, Japan's most infamous text board. What he writes down in 17 short lines will still be whispered about to this day, more than 20 years down the line. A few years ago, I suddenly remembered a certain village. A small village with a ryokan I'd stayed at during a solo trip. The heartfelt hospitality had left a strong impression, and for some reason I suddenly felt an urge to go back. Over a long weekend, I drove out alone. I'm pretty confident in my memory, so I knew the way. As I got closer to the village, there should have been a sign indicating the location, but when I found it, I thought, wait a minute. What I remembered, or thought I remembered as XX kilometers ahead, had changed to Kyotou-o. A weird premonition and a desire to go there mixed together, but I decided to go anyway. When I drove into the village, it was completely abandoned. Buildings were overgrown with weeds. As I was about to get out of the car, from the grass, about 20 meters away, a human with an abnormally huge head came out. Huh? I thought, and then realized they were all around me. And they chased after me with those gross movements, both hands pressed tight against their legs, shaking their huge heads left and right. Thank God I didn't get out of the car. I backed up at a terrifying speed and then plodded to the highway at an insane pace. When I got home and checked the map, the village I'd visited years ago and the place I'd gone that day were the same, but I'm never going back there again. At the time it went up, the short post barely received any attention. But something about it stuck with people. Even 20 years later, Kyoto is a common reply in threads that talk about mysterious missing person cases. Just this word, zero explanation. To those who know, that simple implication is enough. Kyoto-o. 3 characters written on a sign. 2 kanji followed by 1 katakana. And that is exactly what messes with the Japanese mind. You see, kanji and katakana, these two don't intermingle. In case you have no idea what I'm talking about, Japanese writing uses 3 separate scripts: hiragana, katakana, kanji. Hiragana and katakana are fairly similar to the Western alphabet. Sets of 48 simple base characters each, all denoting syllables. In general, hiragana are soft and round, while katakana looks straight and pointed, nearly chiseled. Kanji then are your typical moon runes, complicated to write and read. There are multiple thousands of them. You use kanji for the core of the words, nouns, verb roots, adjective stems, and weave hiragana around them for grammar and flow. Only when you write foreign words or when you want to add emphasis, you replace whole words or sentences with katakana, just like we do with italics. Kyo means giant, to, head. O at the end like this doesn't mean a thing. You don't mix katakana with anything, except Kyoto-o did just that. And to the occult board readers on Nichaneru, that posed a riddle that kept this little story on their minds. Some thought O was no katakana at all, but a misshapen arrow. Giant heads this way. Most people, though, were sure that the last symbol might have been occluded by something or damaged over time. The O, then, could be part of the kanji for village, mura. Kyoto-mura. Giant head village. That stuck, and that made it real. As far as I can tell, the Ichi, the OP of the thread, really never went back to the place, and he never returned with more info. So over the years, people went looking. But with 17 lines, there was just not a lot of info to work with. Nothing ever turned up. Until 12 years later, something did. Mid-August 2018. In the early morning hours, a self-proclaimed artist with the name Mi Dan-cho, or Commander Mi, posts 3 nighttime photos to Twitter. On each of the photos, a sign. On the sign, 3 familiar symbols.
While I
was driving through the mountains, at the point where the road splits from the animal trail, I found a weird sign. Does it say Kyotou-sai? He seems unaware of the two-channel mystery and interprets the last symbol as the kanji for talent, sai. The katakana O and the sai kanji indeed look identical in some typefaces. The differences are minimal. The sign looked legit. Weathered lettering, the third symbol offset to the left in just the right way to be part of a withered away kanji. Everything fit the main theory. Truth seekers were back on the case in hours. They had pictures, they had the numbers, and they had the power of Google Street View. 5 days later, the best of them had already found the spot, went out, and returned with the truth. The place shown in the images of Mi Dan-cho lies in the western part of Japan, close to a dam, near the city of Minamisatsuma, in Kagoshima. They had found the exact spot. What they couldn't find was the sign, nor did they find any traces of it. Only 5 days after the post, nothing. Checking the historical Street View data from 2013 settles it. It was a prank. There never was a sign here. The 3 images, forgeries. But the mystery does not end just yet. What I will show you next happened 2 years before Mi Dan-cho's Twitter post. And it's a side of this story that not even all Japanese researchers have on their radar. A new thread, a new ichi, unconnected to the post from 2006. He didn't post to the occult board, didn't look for attention. In March 2016, 10 years after Kyoto-o first appeared, he opened with a question on Nichannel's wildlife board about a fairly ordinary problem. There's a strange noise coming from the attic. Could someone who knows about wildlife damage come and have a look? For about a week now, I've been hearing strange noises from the attic. The attic is on the 3rd floor of my house, and there are no windows, so I don't think it's the wind. There's hardly any space up there, just camping gear, old desks, school bags, musical instruments, old card games, and all sorts of junk scattered around. It's usually locked, so I don't think any living thing could get in, but I hear sounds like footsteps and strange cries. There's so much junk, you can't even step anywhere. So I'm curious what's making the noise. Anyone knowledgeable about animal pests in houses, please reply. I live in Kanto. There's some mountains around, but it's not deep countryside. My house is 3 stories, and to get to the attic, you have to open a ceiling hatch in the middle of the 2nd floor hallway with a special key. Then pull down the folding ladder attached to the back of the hatch and climb up. So it's hard to imagine something getting into the attic through the regular route. But like I said, there are no windows in the attic, so how did it get in? I looked up attic pests, but there's no smell so far. No wiring in the attic and no chewed wiring in the living spaces either. Maybe it just recently settled in? If so, I really don't want to deal with any damage. To the board users, this sounds like bats or hakubishin, a common pest in rural Japan. They suggest to hire an exterminator, and quickly. Even if it's bats, there aren't any noticeable gaps in the roof. More than anything, I clearly hear a clattering sound like something walking, so I don't think it's bats. I looked up exterminators, but they're expensive. I want to do whatever I can myself. Give me some advice. First, identify the pest. Different animals require different approaches, you know. Even though he's afraid of what might come out of his attic, Ichi agrees. After someone tells of his encounter with an attic snake, Yopi's terrified and wants to talk armament. In the end, he settles on coat, jeans, hat, a baseball glove, and a 90-liter trash bag. Am I underestimating this? Half an hour later, with no answer, he decides to go up, posting a picture of his yet closed attic trapdoor. What he's doing is dangerous for an amateur. They wish him luck and tell him to be careful. 43 minutes pass. Finally, Ichi returns, clearly shaken, and the whole thread shifts. There was no smell at all and nothing animal-like up there. But one weird thing, there was hair scattered all over the place, so I picked some up. It looks more like human hair than animal fur, and it's long hair. There are no women in my household, and no long-haired guys either. Are there any animals that could have hair like this? Too scary, not even funny, fell from under the ceiling hedge. A clump of hair. What is this? The thread comes alive quickly. One user straight up says what everybody is thinking.
人間の毛だな。
Human hair? What the hell is living in your attic? This is unsettling.
何かがいることは確かだ。
Seems certain that something is there. That's no animal fur, right? I'm scared too.
天井裏から聞こえる足音ってどんな感
What
じ？
kind of footsteps do you hear from the attic? Heavy thudding like dota dota or light quick tat 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 like a small animal?
いや、そういう感じじゃなくて。
Nah, not like that.
もそう。
More heavy, like a kata kata or ton ton. After this message, Ichi goes silent again, and board users start to fear that something from the attic got him. One user remembered a true story from 2008. A woman had been secretly living in a man's apartment for months, in his closet, on the top shelf, coming down for food when he left. She was 58 years old. She had nowhere to live. The man only found her after installing a motion camera. The case made national news. 21 minutes later, our OP finally returns. Oi, oi, oi. That's a bit much. That's a bit much. This is seriously bad. Around 6:40, I heard the walking sound and that cry again. So I went to check and there was something human-shaped with long hair going berserk. I slammed the head shut, but there's rattling up there. That's not human. It's making a racket like never before. Sorry for going off topic. I'm dropping this thread. Getting out of the house for now.
ガチっぽすぎてあかん。逃げろ。
This seems way too real. Not okay. Run. Seriously, this is way too scary.
ふひょー。わらわら。
Whoa, lol.
イチさんは
Is Ichi okay?
揃られたんか。
Got killed?
何これ怖い。
What is this? It's scary.
いっちゃんどこ行った？
Where did Ichan go? Five days. From not being out of his house until we hear from him again, 5 days had come and gone. And while his thread went silent and calm, his days were anything but.
数日間そのままにしてしまってすまん。1です。
Sorry for leaving this for a few days. Ichi here. I've calmed down a bit and came home today. I remembered this thread and saw people were worried, so even though I wasn't planning to post again, I felt it was my responsibility to explain what happened over the past few days. Sorry if this seems off topic, please bear with me. It's gonna be long, so I write slowly. It's a hard to believe story, so feel free to just say nice bait and move on. I think that's probably best. Even I haven't fully processed how shocking it was. The thread had one response. That day, after I saw that thing, I panicked and couldn't think straight. I tried to calm down and went to my PC. I meant to report what I saw. But as I was typing, the noise from the attic got incredibly loud, so that went out the window, and I cut it short and fled the house. I drove to a convenience store, parked there, calmed down, and realized it'd be bad if my family came home, so I called my dad, who'd be finishing work, and my brother, who was out. My brother was fairly close and met up with me right away. Went to pick up my dad from his workplace too. I explained everything I saw at home to my dad and brother, who were like, "What's going on?" That there was a human-shaped thing about the size of a child shrieking and threshing, and that it had an abnormally large head and long hair. My brother didn't seem to believe it, but was overwhelmed by how desperate I was. Dad thought for a bit, then said, "I have an idea. I'll take the wheel," and started driving. He also told me to call my uncle. He's my dad's older brother. I called as instructed and told Uncle everything that had happened. Then my uncle said something like, "Why is Toukyo-sama?" I think that's what he said. When I told my dad, he muttered, "I knew it," and fell silent. Apparently, we were heading to Dad's family home. A few minutes later, my limbs started convulsing, and my consciousness grew hazy. In my muddled state, we arrived at my grandparents' house, and my uncle, grandpa, grandma, and various other adults surrounded me with grim faces. Dad was already half crying, and Grandma was shouting, "Don't die, don't die." I realized I was in serious trouble. My uncle and Dad put me in the car. I think they took me further into the mountains. We drove for a while after that. When they took me out of the car, there was an old temple in front of me. They carried me into what looked like the main hall. Uncle talked to a man who was probably the head priest. Then the room was completely shut. It was just the head priest, 4 or 5 monks, and me. At this point, I finally understood. I was getting an exorcism. I think as soon as the monks started chanting sutras, I passed out. I really have no memory from here on, but when my consciousness faintly returned during the exorcism, I saw several of those big-headed things, just like the one in the attic. They surrounded me and those monks, shaking their heads from side to side, jumping and hopping, making those gross movements. Yet the monks kept chanting sutras with sweat beading on their foreheads. My head started throbbing hot again, and when it got hot to the point I thought I was burning, I passed out again. I woke up in a futon. Apparently, they'd put me to rest at Dad's family home. I checked the time on a wristwatch left by my pillow. March 18, 9 a.m. The date had skipped. My head still throbbed with pain. I somehow hauled my leaden body up and headed towards the room where everyone was. When I entered the room where everyone was, they all looked worried and asked if I was okay. I was still confused, unable to grasp the situation, but my uncle told me to come with him and took me to another room. "How are you feeling?" "Yeah, still have a bit of a headache." That exorcism, it lasted until morning. Really glad you're safe. I have no idea what happened. When I said that, my uncle explained everything to me. What the uncle told him took several posts to write out. I'll read them as he wrote them. Geographically, I live in Kanto, but it's the edge of the edge. It's practically bordering Prefecture X. Prefecture X is outside Kanto. I won't write the specific name. All my relatives are in this Prefecture X. I'm proud it's not deep countryside, but by general standards, I guess it would be classified as rural. That's why many hamlets still remain there. My grandfather's grandfather, uncle said this, I don't know the exact period, also lived in one of those hamlets. However, that hamlet had what you could call a vile practice. That vile practice, roughly put, was human sacrifice. It was apparently done every time there was a bad harvest or misfortune in the hamlet. Basically, it was an offering. Starting from the families in the weakest position in the hamlet, they'd offer up a child, and the person in charge would
facilitate the timely removal of the child from the group of individuals currently maintaining a heartbeat. Message approved by the Bureau of Societal Hygiene for your protection.
Then they'd put the body into a box about 1 meter square, along with maru, some kind of term, apparently, and store it. But you can't just store them. Each human sacrifice has a kishu, a cycle of taboo, and when that cycle completes, you have to perform tsumikai, a repacking. If you don't, you'll be cursed, and this kishu is different for each sacrifice. Repacking? It means exactly what it sounds like. You repack the body into a new box with a maru. And here's the thing. When you open the box for the repacking and face the
Deed heartbeated minor.
without exception, every child's head has become abnormally large, and their hair has grown. I don't know why. Because of that appearance, these human sacrifices are worshipped as Toukyo-sama or O-toukyo. The important thing to remember is never to touch Toukyo-sama. Their resentment and hatred are still strong, so you will be cursed. That's why you touching the hair was the ultimate taboo. It seems that back then the hamlet was split into an area for people to live and an area to managing the Toukyo-sama. Our ancestors, the main family, were on the managing side. But around the time of a changeover, they used the opportunity to move to a distant village and escape that vile practice. Sometime after that, the hamlet was wiped out by a landslide, they say, buried under the earth. So not only were there no longer any people to perform the tsumekai for the Toukyo-sama, the boxes themselves were lost. And here's the strange thing. Even now, people like you occasionally come rushing to the temple. They're probably unlucky folks who accidentally wander into the storage area of a village that shouldn't exist anymore. There, countless Toukyo-sama, whose Kishu cycles have long since passed, reside. Why was that thing in my attic? That's the strange part. When our ancestors moved to the current place, they apparently brought several Toukyo-sama with them that were still in the process of being managed. And even now, the main family and the temple where you got the exorcism are strictly storing them until their purification is complete. So there's absolutely no way your dad could have accidentally packed one when he moved to your current place. What's more, the Toukyo-sama in your attic was left past its Kishu. The cause is completely unknown. The Toukyo-sama that was in your house has been contained yesterday by me and the temple's head priest, and it's back in storage. Well, that's about all I can tell you. Get some more rest. I still have so many questions. He wouldn't tell me anything more. Grandpa and Grandma definitely seemed to know something, but they just looked down and said nothing. It seems my dad also knew almost nothing about Toukyo-sama, because the management was entrusted to my uncle, the eldest son. My brother also hasn't been told anything about the Toukyo-sama. So that's what happened to me from March 16th over the past few days. I rested at my parents' house for a while and came home today. I feel fine, and the house seems okay too. Sorry to those who were worried. I don't really expect you to believe me, but I'm reporting in anyway. This is the end of it. Sorry I couldn't reply earlier. If you have any questions, I'll answer what I can.
集落の悪臭はなしは
Stories about village evil customs always give me goosebumps.
場所は昔大飢饉とか
Was the location somewhere in Tohoku, where there used to be many great famines?
詳しい場所は伏せるがやっぱ
I'll keep the exact location private, but it seems famines and such were frequent.
報告大津これ
Thanks for the report. Is there any chance of a curse or misfortune for people who saw the images? There haven't been any reports of that so far, so I guess it's fine, but just in case.
すまんすまん
My bad.
大事なところ
Missed that important part. You can rest easy about that. After all this, I asked my uncle specifically about it, and he said that looking at photos doesn't count as touching, so it should be fine. But I deleted them just in case. The imager pics I can't delete without an account, so I'll leave them as is. Well, he said it's fine, so... A few hours later, Ichi says his goodbyes.
もう二度と屋根裏は開けない。それでは
I'm never opening the attic again. Well then. The Ichi closed his thread and never spoke of it again. But while his posts were still fresh, two readers of the wildlife thread had noticed something. Something that had nothing to do with attics or hamlets or exorcisms. Something linguistic.
なぜか巨頭を思い出した。
For some reason, it reminded me of Kyoto-o. Imagining those monsters where those
Ceremonially sunsetted children.
今追いついた
Just caught up. Strongly agree with 82. Toukyo-sama or O-toukyo. Reverse this and it's Kyotou-o. Serious goosebumps.
かっこ97よく気づいたな
Good catch. So the person in Kyoto wandered into the box storage area? Long ago, right to left reading was mainstream. That's entirely possible. Kinda hope it's coincidence though. Ichi never commented on the connection. Just said goodbye and closed the hatch. The Japanese language knows a few ways to address someone in honor. One way is to append a name or word with sama. Everyone who has ever watched some anime knows that one. It's a highly respectful honorific suffix. Another very common way to elevate the general politeness in a conversation is to put o before something. Kane, money, becomes o-kane. Bento, lunchbox, becomes o-bento. Tokyo, giant head, becomes O-toukyo. You're not changing what something is, you're changing how it's held. Toukyo-sama, O-toukyo. Same idea. Japan made left-right writing in horizontal text mandatory in 1946. Pre-war, if a text needed to be written horizontally, it was written right to left. O-toukyo would have been read Kyoto-o. Exactly as on the sign the post from our first OP in 2006. I still don't know if this village ever had a name, but I've been looking. These stories don't let go easily, and this one left something specific unresolved. A place, a real place, somewhere in the mountains that according to everything we've been told exists. Buried, unreachable, but there. The post of 2006 did not give us a lot to work with, but the Ichi from the attic thread 10 years later did, if we look closely and pay attention. First, his home, where he lives with his brother and father. He lives in Kanto, which is the Great Plain surrounding Tokyo. At the edge of the edge, he says, practically bordering another prefecture. There are some mountains around, classified as rural by modern standards, but not deep countryside. A modern house with 2 floors and an attic. Second, the place where his relatives live, reachable by car and in the mountains, in that other prefecture bordering Kanto. Then a temple even deeper in the mountains. Kanto borders 5 prefectures. West, Shizuoka, Yamanashi, Nagano. North, Niigata, Fukushima. That's where we're looking. Most of the northern border lies already deep in the mountains, and the only non-mountainous area that borders Fukushima also remains flat once in that prefecture. To the west, Nagano shares a huge border with the Kanto region. However, mountains all around here in both prefectures. Shizuoka then is the exact opposite, tiny border connection and only on the coast. That leaves Yamanashi. There I think I found a prime candidate for the OP's mega-cranially infested home. Sagamiko, a far-reaching arm of the Tokyo-Yokohama megalopolis surrounding an artificial lake. Mountains are clearly visible but sit in Yamanashi. Sagamiko is definitely a rural town, a weekend retreat close to Tokyo with a countryside feel, and it sits directly on Kanto's border, edge of the edge. Now, we learned another detail about that hamlet with a tragic past his ancestors lived in. It was completely buried under a landslide. Japan's mountains are unstable in ways that modern engineering has only partially addressed. Japan experiences up to 1,500 landslides every year. Luckily, not many of them are big enough to bury houses and lead to loss of life. But this hamlet was completely buried. That's 1,000,000 tons of rubble. And the prefecture of Yamanashi documented exactly that in 1920, which fits right into the time frame of what the wildlife threat OP was telling.
大正9年8月、森里、同志両村に山崩れ。
August, Taisho 9, or 1920, landslides in the villages of Morisato and Doshi. Over 60 houses swept away, 29 people lost. Morisato is part of Tsuru City and is divided from Doshi by Mount Mishotai. By car, you can reach both from Sagamiko in under 45 minutes. The hamlet we are looking for may still be there in one of the river hollows somewhere in these mountains, buried, waiting for its kishu to complete.
The Bureau of Societal Hygiene needs you to refrain from initiating any digital interaction with the I like this button below this video player. Dissemination of this file is to be strictly limited.